Hey guys, Jonathan here, I hope you're doing good. This week we're going to try something new again. Instead of focusing just on a single idea, we're going to try to analyze a real song. This is a jam tune that does a lot with very little. It's called Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. This tune was written by Joe Zawinul, but became really popular through Cannonball Adderley's recording. It's a song that really crosses over. Jazz musicians love it, funk musicians love it, blues players love it too. There are some songs that feel good when you play them. Not because of how complex they are, but how well everything sits together. I think Mercy, Mercy, Mercy is one of them. The original song was written in the key of B flat, but we're going to transpose it to the key of G. It's a way friendlier key for us guitar players. So if you're on my Patreon, start by downloading that sheet of music. We're going to analyze this song by looking at the paper. And if you're on my YouTube, I invite you to join me on Patreon. Now let's start by analyzing the structure of the song first. We have here 20 bars of music divided into two sections, the A section and the B section. Something to always look for are repetition signs. If you take a closer look, we have a repetition sign at the beginning of the A section, and we have a close repetition sign at the end of the B section. This means that we want to play the A and B section twice, and then we're going to solo over the same form, to go back to the melody once again. This is usually how jazz tunes work. So now let's start first by analyzing the A section, harmonically and then melodically. So let's take a look at those chords first. So we're going to have three chords in the A section, G, G over B, and C7. Now, what is a G over B? Anytime that you see two letters in a chord, the first letter is going to give you the chord, and the second letter is going to give you the lowest note. So if I'm playing a G over B, this means that I'm playing a G major first inversion, because B is the third of G, right? That's the chord that I'm going to play, G first inversion. Now, two ways that I would approach this. Scenario one is, what am I playing? And scenario two is, what am I practicing? All right? In scenario one, what am I playing? The first question you need to ask yourself, who am I playing with? Am I playing with a jazz trio? Am I playing with a jazz quintet? Am I playing a jazz band? Am I jamming with some friends, right? So let's create a scenario that I'm playing on a jazz trio or jamming with some friends. It's guitar, bass, and drums. This means that me as a guitar player, I'm the only instrument that is taking all the mid and high frequencies, right? The bass is taking the low frequencies and the drummer is playing the rhythm. This means that my sound should be covering all the mid and high frequencies of the audio spectrum. So for that A section, I will play something like this. So now, what am I playing here? I'm starting with a really classic G major bar chord, right? And now for the G over B, remember, that's a first inversion triad. I'm gonna go to this closed triad, strings 4, 5, and 6. Right? G over B here. And I'm doing kind of this Hendrix move of sliding from the second note to the major third. Right? So that's my sound of G and G over B. Right? I'm just sliding from the second note to the major third, then playing this fifth and root, and then back to the major third. Then I'm gonna play the C7 chord, bar chord again. Remember, I'm playing just with the drummer and the bass player. I need to take care of all those mid-range frequencies, right? So I'm playing this beautiful C7 bar chord. And from here, I'm going to apply one of those concepts that I've been teaching you guys in my past videos, right? I have a dominant chord. It's the 5 chord in the key of F. And in the key of F, G minor is the 2 chord, and A minor is the 3 chord. So I'm going to play those two chords over C. I'm going to have the root, flat 7, 9, 5th. G minor over C, and A minor over C. I'm going to have the root twice. I'm going to have the major third and the 6 or 13. So what I'm doing is just sliding from G minor to A minor. Right? I'm here, I'm going to play some single notes. I'm going to play with the major minor third. I'm going to slide from the minor third to the major third and then to the 5th. And I'm back on G. Right? So that sounds... Right? And then for the second repetition, I'm playing exactly the same, but at the end I'm going to do a variation of those triads. Right? I'm going to go to G minor, root position, strings 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to chromatically go to A minor, like this. So I'm going to have this. So that was scenario one. What will I play? Now, scenario two is what will I practice, all right? Now here's where it gets interesting, right? I have three chords here, G, G over B, and C7. Most of these chords can be played in 3 strings, right? Because it's triads here. How can I play a C7 chord just using 3 strings? I can use a shell voicing, meaning the root, the third, and the flat 7. Or I can apply that concept that I show you on my past lessons too, that anytime that you have a dominant chord or any seventh chord, 4-note chord, look at this example, C7 for example, strings 1, 2, 3, 4. If you take the bass note away or the root note away, you're going to have a hidden triad here. In this case, it's a dominant chord, so the hidden triad is the diminished triad, the seventh chord of whatever relative major scale we have, right? So in this case, E diminished, that is the seventh chord in the key of F, because C7 is going to be the 5 chord, all right? So, two ways that I can play a dominant chord just on 3 strings, right? Either I play a shale voicing, that is root, major 3rd, flat 7, or I just play that diminished triad, in this case E diminished, right? Because I know that the bass player is going to play that C note for me, right? So here I have now the 4 notes of C7, right? The practice exercise now, strings 1, 2, and 3. Let's play those 3 chords. G, right? Root position, G over B. And then first I'm going to play the shell voicing, C7, right? Root, 3rd, flat 7. And the other concept is G, G over B, and E diminished. Because remember, E diminished with the bass on C, C7, right? But we don't want to play 4 strings, just 3 strings. Now, 3-note chord, 3 different ways of playing the chord, right? I have this inversion, I can also play this inversion, and I can also play this inversion, right? So I can go G, G over B, E diminished. Or I can go G, G over B, E diminished. Now let's try the same exercise on strings 2, 3, and 4. We have G, we have G over B, and we have E diminished here. Because remember, C7, right? 4-note chord, I take the root note away, I have an E diminished triad here. Flat 5, root, minor 3rd. Alright? So we have again 2 concepts. First we're going to look for the shell voicing. G, G over B, shell voicing. Root, major 3rd, flat 7. Right? And the other one is G, G over B, E diminished. In other inversions, G, G over B, E diminished. And the last one will be G, G over B, E diminished. Same idea, strings 3, 4, and 5. First with the shell voicing and then with the diminished triads. So we have G, we have G over B, and we have C7. Now here the voice leading is not that good, but it's not part of being musical, it's just part of fretboard knowledge, understanding the fretboard, right? So we got again G, G over B, C7 shell voicing. Now let's look for those E diminished triads. G, G over B, big stretch here, E diminished. Right? Then I have G, G over B, and I have E diminished here too. Right? Remember, if I put my bass on C, C7. And the last one is gonna be G, G over B, and E diminished. And to finish, strings 4, 5, and 6. I got G major with the open D, G over B, and C7 shell voicing. Root, major, 3rd, flat 7. Let's look for those E diminished triads. G major, G over B, big stretch, E diminished. I got G major, G over B, E diminished. And the last one is gonna be G major, G over B, and all the way up here, E diminished. So again, 2 different scenarios. What will I play and what will I practice? So now let's take a look at the melody. Super simple melody here. We have just 8th notes and quarter notes going on here, right? This is a great example too to understand that anytime that you learn a shape, if you want to call it a scale, right? What you're actually doing is playing those specific notes on a specific part of the guitar. Depending what your harmony is doing or where you're starting that scale, you're going to have a different name for that scale, right? So what I'm doing here is I feel comfortable with minor pentatonic shapes, right? So in this case, I'm playing over G major. I'm going to go to the 2 chord that should be the Dorian mode, right? But if I take 2 notes away, I'm going to have the classic 1st position, right? Minor pentatonic scale. So I'm actually playing my melody around that shape, but my chords are happy, so it's not a minor pentatonic sound. I'm playing a major melody in a shape that I feel comfortable with. That's it. So now the melody is going to start on the second beat of the first bar, right? We're going to go like this. 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. Super simple. We're just going to repeat that twice for the whole A section. Now, if I want to play that same melody around that G major chord, I'm going to have this. So as you see here, it's a little bit more uncomfortable to play the melody, right? It's exactly the same notes, but I pick a different shape, that's all. The melody is still a happy melody being played over major chords. Now, if I analyze those notes against the chords, I'm going to start with the 6th, that is E. Then I'm going to the 5th, that is B. Then my last note is actually the 6th of C7. That's the sound that I'm going for. And for the second repetition, I got exactly the same. But this time I'm finishing on the major 3rd of C. So the first 2 bars I finish on the 6th of C, and on the last 2 bars I'm finishing on the major 3rd of C. Now let's analyze the B section. Let's take a look at the first 4 bars, right? We have a melody that is just playing 3 notes. It's playing a D note, but I'm going to use that 3rd fret of the B string, a whole step up to an E note, and a half step up to an F note. So all I have is this. Now, if you take a look at the chords, we have G, we have C over G, that again is a C major with G being the lowest note, and we have a G7. So now we're going to try to harmonize that melody with those chords, right? So the first note was a D note, and the first chord is a G major chord. If I want to play a G major chord with my melody note, a D note, I'm going to have this root position G major right here. G, B, and D. Now I have that D note as my melody note. The next melody note is an E note, and my triad is going to be a C major with the bass on G. That's going to be right here. C major, second inversion, right? I got that E on the melody. And my last chord is going to be a G7 with F on the melody. Now F is going to be that flat 7 of G7, right? So I'm going to have this shell voice in here. Root, major 3rd, F, flat 7. So now I have the chords. So again, this will be, what am I playing, right? The second question, remember, was, what should I practice, right? Now, we're playing 3 strings, in this case, strings 2, 3, and 4. We should find a way to play this in any set of strings, right? For example, on the top 3 strings, strings 1, 2, and 3. Let's first find the melody. D, E, and F, right? And now we need a G major root position triad with the D on the melody. We have this, right? Then we need a G major with the bass on C. Sorry, C major with the bass on G. That's a C major second inversion with E on the melody. And we need a G7 shell voice in here. So now I can play this. Now let's try the same on strings 3, 4, and 5. Let's find first that melody on the G string. I have a D note here, I have an E note here, and I have an F note here. The first thing I need is a G major root position triad right here. Then I need a C over G, second inversion C major, and then I need a G7, right? And I have these. Next 4 bars, we have this melody going on. Now, harmonically, we have a G major chord, right? And melodically, we're just drawing the triad with the 4th note. We have the root, major 3rd, 4th, 5th. You can even go here, right? Root, major 3rd, 4th, 5th. And rhythmically, the melody again is coming on the second beat of that bar, right? So it's 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Now for the next chord, A really good reason why we transcribe this song instead of B flat to the key of G. We have a chord that is C major with the bass on D. And guess what? On the guitar we have an open string that is a D string, right? That's going to be actually the fourth string. That's a D note. And below that string we actually have three strings, right? To play a triad. So all we need to do is play a C major triad of strings 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, and 3, sorry. In this case C major here. And just put that open D note as our lowest note. That's that sound right there, C over D. I can play it in any inversion. I can go to this C major over D. That's the sound. Or I can go to this C major over D. That's the sound. For this example, I'm going to stay with this one, root position, and D as my open fourth string. Now the chord is coming on the 2s, 3, 4, 1. In the last beat of that bar, I have two eighth notes playing the E note and the G note that are part of this chord. All you need to do is just hold the chord, 2, 3, 4, and play the B and the E string. So those two bars together sound like this: 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Now for the last two bars, you see a C over D at the end, right? Now, sometimes on the recordings, this chord is not being played, or sometimes you play it really soft. Ideally, the dynamics of the song need to go down to come back again, right? So those last two bars, before going to actually the last 4 bars of the song, it's gonna sound like this: 3, 4, 1. So now harmonically, those last 4 bars got a little bit richer, right? We're leaving that bluesy kind of movement between the 1 chord and the 4 chord, just going between G and C. And we're playing a little bit more diatonic. We're going from A minor 7, that is the 2 chord in the key of G, to B minor 7, that is the 3 chord in the key of G, to E minor, that is the 6 chord, to D, that is the 5 chord, back to E, back to D, and we finish on E minor at the end. Now, if you analyze that melody, we're going to have from E to G to A, right? Over the A minor chord, we're playing that root. Then we're going up to that B. So over B minor 7, we're playing the root again. And at the end, we have E, D, E, D, E. And we have E minor and D major over these two notes, right? So over D, I'm going to play a D major first inversion, strings 1, 2, and 3. And over E minor, I'm going to play an E minor first inversion, strings 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to have something like this. Now, a reminder from last time: anytime that you have a 7th chord, right, in this case A minor 7, and you take that bass note away or that root note away, you're going to have a hidden triad. In this case, C major. So anytime you play a C major, but with your bass in A, in this case the open A string, I'm going to have an A minor 7, right? Don't forget that. So that's the whole melody and the chords. Now, for soloing, I did a little solo here, but the idea was to always kind of go back to the melody. For the first bars on the A section, I was playing some blues licks, and my train of thought was like this. Okay, I have 3 chords moving around, actually 2 chords because G over B is still G major, and they're moving every bar. So there's not that much time to be thinking about like chord tunes and, thinking about triads and changing shapes. So I was trying to let myself go, but always with a note in target. In this case, I was trying to find a common tone between G and C7. And actually the G note is a common tone between G and C7, right? The G note is the root of G, and it's actually the 5th of C7. So what I was doing is trying to play bluesy licks, but always returning back to that G note, if that makes sense. For example, I started like this. So I'm playing over the blues. You're gonna see me playing a lot with the major and the minor 3. I was thinking about this G major triad, but I was coming from that, right, A flat note, or B flat note, sorry, half step down, trying to go up to the major 3rd, but without arriving there, in between the minor and the major 3rd. Right? And at the end, playing some notes of the scale and finishing on the G note. Second phrase. Again, we're playing over the blues, so play around with your major and minor 3rd. So I'm starting from the 2nd note, chromatically from the minor 3rd to the major 3rd, some notes of the scale, sliding to that third and fifth, and then chromatically I'm going down from the major third, minor third, second note, and again that G note. Next phrase. And here what I'm doing is again thinking about G major, right? Root, minor third, major third, fifth, sixth or 13, and then up to that G note. Right? And then I'm going to slide from the 6 or 13 to the flat 7. And then playing around with the minor third and major third, and then finishing again on that G note. Next phrase, I'm going to have this. So here I'm thinking about that first phrase, right? I want to bend from that minor third almost to that major third. But this time I'm going to keep the fifth as my highest note. So I'm going to go like this. Play some notes on the scale. But this time I'm going to finish on a D note, right? And I'm finishing on a D note, and my last chord is a C7. So I'm going to have this sound. Kind of, right? Feels great too, right? To leave a little bit the chord tones of the triad. So I'm finishing on the ninth of C. So now for the B section, here's a great example of how those two scenarios, what to play and what to practice, actually come to play, right? If you think about what to practice, and we were like trying to play those triads all over the fretboard, I am taking those practice ideas now to a what to play kind of scenario, right? Because I'm actually, when I play the same melody that I did before, I'm playing the D, the E, and the F note, but I'm harmonizing those triads on the top two strings, three strings, sorry, because I'm in the higher part of the guitar taking a solo. So I'm actually doing this. So now for the last two chords, instead of going back to this C major, I was thinking about this root position C major, but I was just playing the B and the G string. So I was sliding to that root and major third. And for G, I was thinking about this G major, but I was just playing the G and the E string. So I was keeping the B string. I was sliding from the major third to the root of G. So I have this. Now for the next four bars, let's play the same melody higher on the guitar. And for the last four bars, just a small variation of what we play at the beginning. We're gonna go like this. So like I told you at the beginning, Mercy, Mercy, Mercy is a great tune to actually try to understand a lot of concepts with so little. It's not a hard song to play. That's why I think it crosses over to so many genres, right? And that's why jazz musicians love it, but funk musicians and blues musicians love it too. One last thing, this backing track I actually found it on a YouTube channel. The guy who actually wrote it was kind enough to let me use it for my lessons. If you want to use this backing track to practice, please go to his YouTube page. I'm going to leave a link on the description. Alright guys, I hope you find that lesson useful. See you next time, bye bye.